All right, welcome to the Eric Tries Too Hard podcast episode. I think this is 101, but who cares? So I'm here with Rick Homuth. I'm delighted to have him here. He is a contributor for thehardtimes.net and does a bunch of other stuff. Sorry, Rick, I didn't stalk your profile enough. You didn't have enough listed when I tried to stalk it. So we'll get into that in a minute. So to everyone listening, and Rick, I am a little bit sick, so if you can hear that in my voice, that's just what that is. So
me too.
That'll be good. That's the excuse. This goes poorly. It was just the illness. All right, so well, first off, thanks for joining me. I'm glad you could take some time and do this.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So could you tell me what are all the creative pursuits that you are, I guess, involved in, so I can get an idea?
Boy, I guess the reason it was probably hard for you to nail down or profile was because I don't exactly know myself exactly. It's all very amorphous and up in the air. Hard Times being one of them. I also dabble in writing. I sort of am an aspiring writer in a lot of ways. So I'm actually been working on, some essays and stories and whatnot. I was recently in Morocco over the winter, which was cool. And a roommate of mine, who was a filmmaker, he was doing his own little excursion in this country, in the desert. So we're trying to put together a little chapbook of sorts, just about stories and observations, tied together by the unifying theme of, being out in the desert. And all the metaphors that just sort of jump out from there. Alongside that, I am working with. I live in Chicago, so I'm coming to you from beautiful Humboldt Park right now, and I am a big fan of this author Nelson Algren, who's a Chicago guy, and wrote about kind of around where I live. And I've recently started working with the Nelson Algren Committee in town, which is just a group of eccentric, literary figures, and we meet every once in a while and drink wine and talk about books, and it's a lot of fun. And we're in the process of putting together his annual birthday party. I mean, he's dead, so we're doing it for him, and it's that's coming up in March. Trying to throw together something about that, and I guess that's sort of about sums it up.
All right, cool.
I think. Oh, and I'm also, I guess this is the big one. I'm trying to write a play right now, which is very hard. About
I bet
it's so hard, man. Like I didn't think it would be, which was sort of naive because you go see theater and you're like, yeah, whatever, they're talking about stuff, and then things happen, but it's difficult. And I'm from Kansas City, Missouri originally, and moved to Chicago about 5 years ago. And I have a friend of mine down there who directs. He's a director of sorts, and we're going to submit it to this festival, hopefully to be produced in July. So that's another thing.
Nice.
I have all these arbitrary deadlines that I've been failing to meet.
You and George R. R. Martin, you're up with the best.
Right. Yeah.
Well, so like
he and I are in the same league, I'd say.
Just about.
Creatively.
It's like he thought it'd be easy to create a world and write a 7-book series.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, cool. So you're in general you're a writer, and so you kind of got into I guess Hard Times. That's what I'm going to end up gravitating a lot of this back to, because that's how I know you. But like so just writing in general. Now, are you, other than Hard Times, are you involved in anything else comedy wise?
And say that again, comedy?
Yeah. Is anything else rooted in comedy?
I'm sorry, the audio's cutting out a little bit.
My God.
Okay.
Are you involved in other comedy things?
Other comedy things. Well, I tell jokes a lot. Just today, I was in an Uber, and the driver said that I was very funny. I made some comments. I will describe to you the jokes that I made. One of them was
I like this bit.
she was talking about, she was a lovely lady. Her name was Dallas, and she had a PT Cruiser with flame decals on the side. And I swear to God,
Dallas in Chicago.
Absolutely. Like, and that's the thing is, like, I wish there was a button that you could press on the app to request a certain driver every single time, because she's the goofiest lady on the planet. And I think I said, and I'm sorry if I offend a segment of your audience with this, but she was talking about how she needed a lot of towels in the car because she was very anal about that. And I said, yes, you need a lot of towels for anal. And luckily she was the right kind of gal for that.
Listen, her name was Dallas, the right type of gal
Dallas,
for that.
yeah. So Dallas, if you're out there listening, here's a shout out. You're a lovely lady.
Dallas is a regular listener of this podcast. She's one of our loyal listeners.
Definitely seems like the type. But so I guess to answer your question, I don't know. I've always gravitated towards comedy writing. I mean, the things I try to write and pursue are of a more lighthearted type. There was a point in my life when I think I was like, oh, I could be a stand-up comedian, you know, or I could, you know, own a bar where high schoolers can hang out and play the punk rock. You know, those dreams you have. So, but other than that, in a formal setting, not really. I mean, I work in a kitchen now with my English degree. The jokes write themselves, really.
Oh, of course. No, that's just really cool that that it sounds like you're into with your other writing projects. It sounds like things are on. I'm sure there can be comedy infused, but it's interesting to me when someone, and I've had plenty of people on before where they go, where they're like, yeah, I do all of this very serious stuff, but then there's this one outlet for comedy, and I think that's really interesting on your end. All right, so let's take it back. You said you've always gravitated towards comedy, and I like to ask a lot of my guests how they kind of got into the world of humor. Did you get into it through comedy writing, or did you get into it from seeing stand-up, or what made you kind of gravitate towards that, or even writing in general? Honestly, I'm curious how you got into that as opposed to any of the other, I guess, art forms that you could have gotten into.
Well, I think writing is good. I think I gravitated towards writing because I don't like working.
Yes.
And I think, you know, writing to me doesn't feel like work. Because you're sitting there, you know, and that's easy. I sit all the time. I'm really good at it. Right, it just comes naturally to me. It is something I feel passionate about. And at the same time, it's, I think, my best shot, you know, at doing something is like, well, I don't want to say make it necessarily, but success is something I think we all work towards.
Sorry to cut you off, but I gotta. How early did you realize that you're like, this is probably my best chance for success? Because that's really interesting to me to have that someone would have that insight early on. When did you kind of realize that?
Well, I think I was always sort of a contrarian, as so many of us punk rock types are.
Yeah.
I went to all boys Catholic college prep school, or high school, in Kansas City, Missouri. And,
oh, jeez. If the Get Up Kids have taught me anything, it's about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and they teach us a lot. Good old Matt Pryor. But if you could believe it, I didn't exactly fit in at Rockhurst High School.
Come on.
You know, I was like one of maybe 3 kids that wore tight pants, and you know, everybody. If you go to an all boys school, the gay jokes, you know, kind of go with the territory, but even more so if you wear the tight pants and listen to the Get Up Kids and all that. So I think I always wanted to rebel against my classmates who played lacrosse and intended on going to KU to study business and just live the frat boy dream.
That's you're painting quite a picture.
Yeah, the scars are still fresh 5 years later. So I think that is really where the more creatively inclined part of me flourished. I mean, I was always fancied myself a creative guy. That was definitely a big part of it. And then, you know, up until I was about 15, I listened to pretty much exclusively Limp Bizkit. Like, I was a music asexual in a lot of ways, because I would either listen to Limp Bizkit or my dad when I was a kid. This is quite the tangent, I guess, but I think it's entertaining and relevant, is that he was trying to learn Spanish in his middle age. And so whenever we would drive in the car or do anything, he'd have like Santana or Shakira or something playing songs in Spanish because he was trying to learn. And so until I was like maybe 13, I thought music was just in Spanish. Like I just thought all music was in Spanish. And in my head, I was like, I guess I'm just not that into music because of all the maracas and stuff.
I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it. But then Fred Durst came into my life, and boy, did things change from there.
But it still wasn't in English. It was
yeah. Well, he has his own special dialect, I'd say.
Yeah.
But it's real. He's very real, I'd say. And then when I was a sophomore, I ended up in my first basement show, and it was just like, wow.
Yeah, it changed a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
And the rest is history.
And that's really cool because I actually relate to that a lot. I definitely. How old are you?
22.
20. You're only 22?
I'm only 22.
Wow. Okay. Jesus. 5 years when you were 17. Got it. Okay. Gotcha. Do you live with your family still?
No, I live with 2 other dudes in the city.
So, yeah. Is your family still back there, and you went up to Chicago for college?
Yeah, I came to Chicago for college.
Okay, cool. All right, well that definitely does not explain the Limp Bizkit. I was gonna say, I was like, yeah, man, when I was in middle school, they were all the rage. Like, oh no, you got into Limp Bizkit late. Was Wes Borland still even in the band?
That's a good question. I suppose probably not. What was that guy's name? Mike something. I don't know.
I don't know. I knew he was in.
He won the Guitar Center contest or whatever, but
that whole band was.
I haven't brushed up on my chronology. Yeah. Right.
Well, that's fair. I definitely love it. Also, but what I relate to is getting into. I actually got into punk rock not from any of like most of my friends were like, oh yeah, my parents either played me Ramones or Clash, or it'll be like I heard, some pop punk band on the radio, and that led to this, that led to that. For me, it was just like you said. I went to a basement show, and the first like 20 punk bands I listened to were bands from my area, and that's what got me into the more popular punk bands. And it was just a whole. Yeah. For me, it was more than just the music. You see the culture of it. Did you have that similar experience, or what?
Oh, absolutely. I mean. It may have been the culture more than the music, honestly, because it was I didn't really hang out with anybody at my high school besides like maybe 3 or 4 other guys. So I would end up catching a ride with one of my friends who had a driver's license into the city
I know that
on weekends. Yeah, and then just I just let my fucking 15-year-old ass get hammered and crash on the couch and smoke cigarettes and all that shit, and it was just awesome. And then they just happened to have shows in the basement, and it just seemed a lot more real than anything else because I had never had any connection to music before. My parents didn't listen to music that other than my dad and Shakira. So if they wanted to get me a gift, it'd be like, oh, well, here's Now 12, pop this CD in. What Michelle Branch has to say or whatever. And so I had no affinity for music until I saw it like being made in front of me by people I could talk to and experience, like touring bands would come over from all over the country and then, they'd play. And then they just stick around and we'd all get drunk and talk about whatever. And it was just a really visceral way to experience like what people could do with music. And I just loved it.
That's so cool. Like I was never fortunate enough to get the touring band sticking around experience because I'm from Baltimore. And so being from Baltimore, you would always have like, I don't know, there was always such a huge punk scene. Because like when I was in high school, it was 2000, 2004, and punk was just everywhere once I was going to shows. And we would always have like shows would be too packed for any bands to really stick around. I guess you could catch them smoking out back or whatever. They were always cool. But like, and tell me if this is accurate or if I'm way off base, but like where you grew up, did you find there wasn't that much to do? And so so you had a lot of people going to shows, or how was that like? Yeah,
it's definitely the Midwest has a lot of that. Kansas City, especially, because it really like Kansas City's going through a renaissance, I think, right now. But at the time, and definitely still now, it's kind of a cow town at heart. So yeah, there's not a lot to do, and I lived in the suburbs, so I hated where I lived. You know, it was like I don't give a shit. You know, and so being in the city was great, and yeah, so most of the bands were from around the Midwest, so it was really cool, like being, 17, 18, and just having friends in Milwaukee or St. Louis or whatever, just that I talked to, and because there weren't as many people into it, like this, there were like maybe one or two houses that would do shows, and a grand total of like 60 people who would go on any given night, if even. Then it was that much more close knit, and just up close and personal, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
Because when I ended up moving to Chicago, like there were the same bands I would see in Kansas City, or the bands of the same caliber or echelon or whatever you want to call it, would end up playing venues because there were that many more people who wanted to see them. Yeah. So you don't get that kind of access.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely, I definitely feel that. So, so I assume the Catholic school was not your choice.
As a matter of fact, it was kind of my choice. I mean, my parents definitely wanted it, but I hated the people I went to middle school with so goddamn much that if there was another option, even if I had to wear, a belt and tuck in my shirt and stuff, and like, all right, whatever. And I do think it was one of the better decisions I think I made in my life, honestly, because the thing about that school was, it was a private school, so kids from all over the city would go there. And so if I had gone to the public high school, it would have just been kids from my suburb, like, oh, well, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, we're getting high behind Conoco. All right, cool, let's do that, But at the school I did end up going to, it would be like, I'd end up in a suburb in Missouri somewhere, or up north of the river, or hanging out with kids actually in the city, and you just get exposed to all these different backgrounds and people and perspectives, and it was eye-opening. It's just you finally get out of the suburbs. It's the pop punk story come true, I guess.
And what's funny, that used to be just punk, and then I don't know how familiar you are with the current pop punk scenes, but like there's a whole like culture of I'm more pop punk than you, which is like, it's so funny because I remember back in the day it was like the I'm more punk than you argument was dumb, but at the same time there were so many morals, ethos, sacrifices, and like self-scarring that would happen for you to be more more punk than someone else. But the idea of being more pop punk that was legit, I like pizza more than you, was the funniest fucking internet arguments I've ever seen in my life. But I digress. So I imagine going to the private school gave you some opportunities for writing as well, that you wouldn't necessarily have.
Yeah, it did. I was on the school paper, and it was a horrible, horrible experience, and everybody hated it. But it did, it did stimulate that within me, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's cool. So what made you go up to, how did you choose your college?
Well, I did 2 years at Columbia College Chicago, which is an art school. And that was basically just, it was a reaction, like I mentioned earlier, just whatever everybody else is doing, fuck that. I'm not moving to Lawrence, Kansas and studying business. I'm going to move to Chicago, go to school downtown, and study creative writing, because a friend of mine who I knew through DIY music and whatnot had gone there for a semester before he dropped out for not going to class. Tale as old as time, but everybody else besides him who I met when I visited was like doing things and like participating, and wasn't just going to class and getting drunk on the weekends. They were like actually, in their working in their fields. Like if they wanted to do stage design, then they were stage designing. And I was meeting kids my age with like IMDb pages.
Yeah,
I was like, damn,
cool.
This is nuts.
Yeah.
Like non-traditional school experience. So what I realized about a year and a half too late in the game is that Columbia is an awful place to go to school.
Oh.
And I got out real quick. And I transferred to DePaul which is just sort of a regular, ironically, a Catholic school.
You can't escape it. Are you religious at all, by the way?
Couldn't get out. What's that?
Are you religious at all?
No, actually, I because of my time at Rockhurst Academy in Kansas City, I formally defected from the Catholic Church when I was 17, and like really in that "fuck you, God, you're super not real" phase. And
I'm still gonna yell at you though.
I
don't care how not real you are. I'm
all
yelling
the
at you.
time. I gotta yell at God or Rahm Emanuel. You know, those are my two guys to blame. And although I believe in Rahm Emanuel, I think he's good. Anyway. So I looked up on the internet how to quit being Catholic. That's what I Googled. And ended up, you have to like write this letter to the Archbishop and then just like declare that you're defecting from the Catholic Church. And I got two guys at my lunch table to sign it as witnesses. And I like mailed it in, like physically mailed it in, and got a letter from the bishop just being like, "Oh, we should talk about this." And I was like, "Fuck you, no." I didn't actually say that, but I was thinking it.
Yeah.
And eventually just I got out. And so now I am formally not religious, which is pretty cool.
You have documentation to prove it.
I have the documentation, yeah. I got to get it framed or something.
Okay, school. So you're in school. Have you graduated?
I have graduated, yeah. I've been out of school for about half a year now.
Oh, okay. So in the meantime, I guess you're okay, well then let me ask you this. Actually, well, my own little tangent. Let me ask you, any like really sweet Chicago shows that you've been to since you got there?
Oh man. Well, Chicago's so much better than Kansas City for seeing big bands. Like I guess the two coolest, like I've got to see Dillinger 4 twice, and they're like my fucking favorite band.
Yeah,
Planet.
I can see the poster. Yeah.
Yeah. They're my guys. But I remember a couple times I got to see Los Crudos because they're from Chicago.
Okay.
And that was really cool. And one of the times was during the Infest reunion stint. So I got to see Crudos and Infest at the same time at this really cool venue on the south side called Chi-Town Football. And it was unique, A, because those are two bands that you just don't see anymore. And B, because Crudos is, from Pilsen, which is a heavily, Mexican ethnic enclave. It's like sort of the definitive Mexican neighborhood in Chicago, although there are a lot of them. And Chi-Town Football is this big indoor soccer arena where they have this like big open space for where they like would build a stage, and so bands would play. And it's like a big space because a lot of people would come to this sort of thing, and it's crazy because like you walk up this big ramp into the arena, and then there will be a sign and it'll say like Los Crudos reunion show to the left, and then Rodriguez birthday party to the right. And then there's like, so on one side there's like a 200 fucking dingy punk kids like smashing each other in the face while this legendary hardcore band is reuniting alongside another legendary hardcore band. And then on the other side there's a bunch of people like playing soccer and like little kids running around playing video games, like eating churros. Like it's really cool because there's like it's a real community feeling, because a lot of those guys are involved in, they live in Pilsen and have family members and shit like that. So it's just, I don't know, the Southside punk stuff in Chicago is really, really cool, I think.
It's community feeling until one of those hardcore kids goes to the wrong party and confuses the soccer game for a circle pit, and
right.
So, yeah, not so happy.
Well, they know how to smash pinatas, I guess.
Yeah, that's, and for all this like hard time stuff, I think of everything now in what's the punk rock version of that, or what's the punk rock headline or joke. And so now all I can do is try to fuse a hardcore show with a Mexican birthday party. That's all I want to do. So when did you start?
The jokes write themselves.
Yeah, they do. Well, they really do. When did you start? How did you find out about the hard times? How did you submit or apply to get on it? And then when did you officially become a part of it?
Well, I first saw it on Facebook. I think somebody was sharing something.
Do you remember what article?
I think the first one I saw that I really thought was funny was I don't remember the exact headline, but it was about the aging punk dude who decides he likes hockey now.
Oh, that's right.
Because
all my hardcore friends who get that age all get into hockey. It's insane. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just perfect because I love hockey. I'm a huge Chicago Blackhawks fan.
Yeah.
And I spend half my time just reading about the hockey and everything, and it's pretty funny. So that was the first one where I was like, wow, they got something going on here.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I used to tell this joke, or not, I guess not tell a joke, but had this little bit where I would say Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. His name was Billy Joel Armstrong because for a while I thought that's what his name was. And then there was a Hard Times headline where it was like Billy Joel Armstrong, something, something, lead singer of Green Day. And a friend of mine like put that on my wall and was like, hey, that's kind of like that joke you used to make. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? These guys are stealing my jokes. Well, I mean, obviously not. But,
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? Hey, this seems pretty cool. You know, I'm into punk and I tell jokes. And so I looked around on the website and emailed Matt on the address and had some ideas. And he said, welcome aboard. And,
Nice.
and that was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, maybe.
Cool. What was your favorite of the ones you initially pitched? Those first 10 that you submitted? Do you remember?
I think the one I really liked was, and this one event I think was the first that got put on the site was a touring band booked at Sober Space makes another trip to the van.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I like
because
that
it's
one.
just it's not even a joke. It's just a true thing that happens. You know,
Yeah.
Truth in comedy.
I was pitching some ideas with one of the other writers, just going back and forth trying to punch stuff up. Mm-hmm. And I was just making some observations. And he was like, oh, that's a really good one. That's a really good headline. I was like, that was just me making an observation.
Right.
I wasn't even trying to make a headline. But yeah, like that's really cool.
I mean, I do that every single time. And everybody I know does that every single time. Like I can think of 4 venues in Chicago where like, just people just slam beers in the van. And that's just, you know, you don't tell anybody because people get mad, but it's just, it's stuff. It's just so esoteric in its own way that like only, you know, a set amount of people are going to get it. And I guess this sort of describes all of them, but I think that's just the beauty of the whole thing is like when it clicks, it really clicks.
Oh yeah. If you were to pitch me, I didn't realize, I guess, how widespread some of the knowledge of this culture is. If you were of just alternative culture, punk culture, because if you were to tell me like, because I heard about the site, I don't remember exactly when, probably a year ago, maybe, I don't know, something like that. What is it, January? Maybe a little less than that. But like the first ones I saw, it was like you ripped this right out of my brain. Not the headline, because I'm not as clever. Jesus Christ, some of those people are so good. I mean, you know how hard it is to get stuff on because there's so many good people pitching so much stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, all of this should be headlines. All of it.
Right.
You just can't. But anyway, I remember seeing it and being like the observations I've had that I think anybody could make. But I was like, how would anybody else get this? I was like, did they just make this website for me and my friends? I was like, I would have never believed the site could be popular. And obviously it's very popular, which is so amazing.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Well, let me ask you then about, I'm glad I had you on this week, where, because you just had a really funny article that not only funny, but kind of got taken to the next level.
Yeah.
Based on, well, I'll let you tell. Could you tell us what the article was and then the reaction to it?
Well, the article I believe was Insane Clown Posse donates 10,000 bottles of Faygo to Flint, Michigan, which is of course, I mean, and it's like that's another one of those things where it's barely a joke. You know, it's just a thing that. You know, you plug this detail into this other premise, and then that's comedy. And I honestly like it feels like it's barely my idea because it just seems like it's just a The jokes write themselves, I guess.
It's obviously in reference
But,
to the Flint, Michigan water crisis. Who knows when people are going to actually listen to this, so I don't know. But like, yeah, I swear, dude, like every month I'll see like podcasts from like 6 months ago that get a significant uptick in votes. What am I saying? A significant upticks in views. And I'm just like, oh shit, okay, fine. But like, yeah, so for anybody who isn't aware of it now or in the future, Flint, Michigan's having a water crisis. And on top of it, celebrities on Twitter were just like competing with each other or just bragging about how much water they were sending to Flint. And of course, ICP is going to send Fago. Okay, so Rick has frozen, or as he puts it, I froze, but whatever. We can argue about that when he comes back on. He's going to refresh. Just come back on. All right, cool. How are you guys doing? You guys doing okay? How's your weekend? Everybody make it out of the snow okay? Look at that picture, Rick. Looks so good. Dashing. Yeah, if you're listening to this on audio form, you're really missing out on the classy Google Plus / Gmail. I assume that's the picture in reference to. Oh, you can see me and hear me? It'll take, okay, good. Well, it'll take about, I don't know, a little bit, and then it should pop back on as long as you have completely joined. And for the audio version, I can obviously cut all this out. He says, I call that my LinkedIn profile face. It's a good one. It's a good one. I like it. It's the colors on that are definitely, I don't know, you look like you could be the lead on a romance novel cover, I think. You'll be here all night. You might be with stuck in that position. All right, let's see. Try the eggplant. Is that the vegan version of try the veal? Try the eggplant? Oh, man. Yes. Yes, it is. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that can be done. Can't imagine why. See, I don't want to eject you. Rick, I am laughing at it, but I'm cutting all this out, so I'm not going to keep reading the jokes. That one's just for me. Shit, why is this not working? Why is it not working? The only thing I would suggest. Oh, you haven't? Oh, okay, yeah. Then just do that. Okay, now he's gone. Let's talk about how we really feel. Sweet. All right. Hope I remember to cut all this out. If not, I'm sure at the very end I'll just say how much time has elapsed. No, because then I need to have done that at the beginning of it. So I want to make sure we get back into ICP article. Writing on this tissue. How about I use it? ICP article. Yeah, it's 9:40 already. Yeah. I'll ask him any rejected hard times pitches that he liked. And then what's next? I think we can all take this time to quietly meditate. Just breathe in through your nose. Listen to me doing it. Nice and healthy. And breathe out through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose. Breathe out through the mouth. That cough was not planned. I feel like that was pretty funny, I thought. You guys want to go through my magic card collection? Totally do that. I just start playing songs for you. Fuck, I am actually gonna have to cut shit out. Nobody's watching this. I don't know why I'm being a dumb trying to keep it going. Don't want to get taken out of the moment. Cause you gotta enter the moment. Gotta do what you can. I'm gonna click off the screen while he what's it called? Oh my god, I look awful. Ugh. Oh, nice. Beautiful.
Hey, is it working?
Awesome. Oh, nice.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's working great. All right, beautiful. Oh,
That's my
man.
phone.
All right, so here's my note to myself when I go back in. It was about 4.5 minutes that I'll come back from. All right, sweet. All right, so we're talking about the ICP article.
All right.
So you put out the article about them donating the Fago. God damn it, that's funny. Like you said, I know you're just like a writer, where or even a comic, where you won't give yourself credit for shit, which is a good thing. I don't trust anybody who can take a compliment. So like you, but you're definitely right about like, I don't know, when I saw you pitch that in the room, I was like, where the shit has that been? Like, and you're the one who pitched it. You deserve all the credit. And it's like, and at the same time, it's like, how had that not been pitched by everybody else that was so just right there for the taking? It was perfect. Yeah. But you were the one who figured it out, which is unreal. And the fact that no other it's so good and so right there and perfect that I'm surprised no famous comedy writers made that connection yet, or like, wow. Like, yeah. Anyway, so tell us what the reaction to that article.
Well, I guess I never really got to the bottom of this, but somebody said, I think it was Matt was talking about how some radio station in Detroit ended up picking it up, which that's fantastic if that's true, because ever since there was that Snopes article on that headline that Jake pitched, I was like, man, we could really do some serious work here.
The Metallica one, that's unreal.
That one was hilarious.
Yeah, that was.
But it's funny because I tweet just because that's the marketable thing to do these days.
You have to do that.
Because the old out of touch white dudes that are in charge of all these businesses, I think, equate having a Twitter presence to being a successful millennial business type, and it's always nice to have that at the bottom of the article you write, so some people follow you. But what ends up happening is that some people get mad at you, and some guy was really trying to grill me on Twitter about that article, because he believed it, but he was skeptical. You could tell he was like, ICP hasn't announced anything on their website or anything. I was like, well, that seems strange. I wonder why they didn't do that. Just like, I'm as confused as you are. And
I like how people in the comments were like, well, ICP, which is actually true, by the way, those as much as people hate their fan base or even them as people, they're like very charitable human beings who don't get go after positive publicity. So if they actually donated to Flint, they wouldn't have said anything. Like, the commenters were right. And it just added to the mystique of how real this could possibly be.
Oh, absolutely. And there was one guy, I don't know if you saw this, but he was going hard in the comments.
I looked for it. I couldn't find it. I saw your reference. Yeah, what happened? What was that?
Like 8 in a row of just like, you need to look up all this and that and click these links and educate yourself because they're really pulling the wool over our eyes. Like, Flynn is this conspiracy, and it was just goofy stuff.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's that's the best part about, you know, working with the hard times, is you get to look at that and think like, wow, I made this happen. I created an outlet for this just kook to spew his crazy shit.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's just why you get in the game, you know. Makes all this also worth it.
Well, dude, this is so on point with the hard times. Is hard times more like real life than comedy? In that, so I mentioned, I'll briefly tell this because I think I've told this story on one of my podcasts before. Maybe it was somebody else's podcast, whatever. When the first one I got on was about a crust punk who was just like an asshole, basically a hypocritical crust punk trying to promote a show. And when I had a name. And then Bill, who edited it, was like, "Oh, I think you need to change the name, because the name, I believe, this all happened over the span of like 2 months, so I'm trying to remember exactly. So some details could be off, but I think I like named somebody who was in like a famous punk band, and I was like, oh shit, I'm so bad at fake names. So then I was like, first couple names that pop into my head, I'm like, Chris Loyce, sure. So I put that out, and the day the article comes out, maybe like 6 or 7 hours after it's posted, I get this Facebook message from a guy named Justin Loyce.
Oh,
and I'm like, and it said like, why did you write an article about me? And I was like, what? And I was like, and then I realized, oh, that's where I got that last name from. He was a dude who was in a high school punk band when I was in high school. So and it wasn't his same first name. It was just the last name. But it turns out, dude graduates from high school, moves to Baltimore, where I set the article, became a crust punk, and puts on crust punk fests in people's basements.
No shit.
Like, what the fuck?
That's incredible.
All right, sure, why not? Anyway, yeah, it's just so crazy how the bleed into real life that these satire articles can have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I always feel so bad. Kind of. I think it's more funny when people feel when people like take Onion articles and think they're real.
Oh,
and then you kind of go, well, wait, you never know.
You know, you could read into that a little bit. There's certainly something profound, I think, about that line, and it is also just a testament to the great work that those people do. It's really, incredible.
I saw one Onion article the other day that was something like, it was so simple and so like didn't even make a point, but I thought it was so funny. It was just Little League pitcher getting continuously fucking shelled. I
saw that one. It's good stuff.
I was like, yeah, it's just beautiful, heartwarming, and hilarious. But yeah. All right, well, tell me.
It's interesting. Well, real quick, I guess about that. Just thinking about it.
Go for it.
In Chicago. You know, that's the Onion. That's where they, operate out of.
Oh, by the way, this is not because you're on, but I just happen to be wearing my Cubs hoodie.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Oh yeah.
I'm more of a Sox guy, but
my bad. I should have checked jurisdiction and location first. My bad.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. It just reflects on this operation as a whole.
Well, you know what? That's actually fine.
I will be judging accordingly.
Good.
But that's the interesting thing is, you run into some Onion people sometimes. Like I have a couple friends who are involved in that, but the writers are like, I don't want to say business types, but like are serious. A lot of those kids are, Ivy Leaguers. And
I was going to say,
it's interesting the way that works.
Well, comedy writing, and this is what I've been getting into comedy writing over the last couple years and helping. I have friends who are comics who have some of them have writing jobs at well-known shows, but just small writing jobs. And I've helped a couple people punch up pilots and scripts and stuff, which is so much fun. I'm trying to work on stuff on my own, but the one thing that is kind of a deterrent, I mean, it shouldn't be, but it is hearing about the Ivy League network of comedy writers, where it's just you can get you look at what is it at SNL? They're like, yeah, we've always had a handful of stand-up comics writing, a couple of comedy people we got from wherever, and then half of the people are usually Ivy League writers who were just funneled in through a system, which is weird because there are so many professions, like business-type professions, where you can't get just funneled in from school to work. And the fact that comedy writing happens to fall into that category is mind-blowing to me.
It is.
Sorry,
It is.
anyway.
No, I mean, it's interesting because that's, just the way that, I don't know, comedy, because you like to think of it as just a ragtag group of, I don't know, misfits and drinking coffee and just, riffing together, but I guess it's just not like that anymore. I don't know. It's very surreptitious in that way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah, I want to see dick jokes getting crafted by like hoity-toity types.
Yeah, in some office conference room in Manhattan somewhere.
That's what there's an old from the South Park guys. There's an old memo they had when debating with the censorship people on jokes for the movie, and it really is just this dry memo back and forth about rim jobs and like and boner balls, and then but it's all very serious and very like business type. In the end, it's from Matt Stone. It's like, P.S. This is my favorite memo ever. But yeah. All right. Well, tell me, what is your favorite? What would you say? Because we're about to wrap up. So, what is your favorite? One or two like hard times pitches you had that never made it?
Oh man, it's funny because I think everything I pitch is gold.
Me too, until I hit send, and then I instantly regret everything I ever did.
Yeah, and I'm like, what is this garbage? They're gonna kick me out. But gosh, off the top of my head.
Yeah, sorry, I know that's kind of putting it on the spot there.
No, it sucks because there are a bunch of them. Like I think, oh man, and this one sucks because it sort of reflects on me as a person and how I live my life and think my thoughts. But it was like breaking. Touring acoustic songwriter is going to fuck your girlfriend. Because it's trying to play on that
I love that.
Paranoid fear. Yeah, exactly.
That in.
It's ongoing. He hasn't done it yet, but you can tell he's trying, and he's like, and he plays a Conor Oberst song or something, and just they're hitting it off real good, and everybody's starting to leave the show, and it's just because I've seen that happen before. Not to anybody I've been seeing, but like where some dude in a big emo band goes on his own little acoustic stint and then just kills it with the ladies. Like it's every city he's in, it's just like, all right, you're a babe, and she's like, oh man, you're a babe, and then the sex happens. I don't know, and I thought that was pretty good, but maybe that was a little rough around the edges for.
There was one pitch somebody made that was like Crust Punk dies doing what he loved, heroin. I was like, it's so good. That's I think what Matt said. He was like, he's like, man, that's good. We cannot run that though. That's so depressing. Like that's we don't want to hurt people. It's like,
collar tugger,
Yeah. But it's just perfectly worded. I love good, well worded jokes. Like that's
really half the battle. Is there can be the funniest idea on the planet, but if it's too long or just cumbersomely put together, then it's not going to run because half of the punch is reading. I suppose. That's
what's so tough about this. You'd think it'd be easy to pitch stuff because it's one line, but if you're trying to pitch something that's good, you need to get four ideas into a span of about 10 words. And like your word choice has to be so deliberate. It's so impressive.
I mean, I think one of the nuances of this whole style is that you're sort of relying on the audience member to piece it together in their head. And so if they're not able to do that, then it's just not going to land, If it takes too long for them to get the joke, and I don't know, maybe this is the pretentious creator side of me coming out, but they got to get it. And if they don't get it, it's not your fault, it's their fault. And half the time, it just seems like that's the reality of it. But that's really where the skill enters into it. Is not coming up with a funny concept. It's figuring out how to implement it.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think that's part of why I think the Hard Times has been so successful is because, Matt and Bill and all those guys just really curate everything super well and just run a tight ship.
Well, that writer's room is one of the coolest experiences. I've done a lot of like fun stuff in these last couple of years with comedy, and that writer's room is hands down the most fun and creative and challenging thing that I've ever been a part of. Like, yeah, it's really cool. All right, well, tell us about any projects you got coming up, and let us know where we can find you on where old white CEOs can find you on Twitter.
Well, on Twitter, I'm at RJ Homuth. That's HOMUTH. And most of my tweets are chess games that I've won or comments about the Chicago Blackhawks, the defending Stanley Cup champions.
Yep.
And as far as projects, I suppose if you are in the eccentric parts of the Chicago intelligentsia, the Nelson Algren birthday party is going down March 19th, and we're going to be. I am being admittedly the youngest member of the group by.
Ah, shit! That cut out.
Are you there?
Yeah. Say that again. Youngest member of the group.
Oh, yeah. Being the youngest member of the group by about 30 years, I'm the guy who's doing all the social networking because, there's a gap that could be bridged between the people involved in arts and culture in Chicago now and the people who might potentially be involved or blah blah blah. And so my goal is to try and get some new people in because it's interesting. And this is getting tangential, but Algren is sort of in a way, and I hate to describe him as such because it goes against the contrarian in me, but he is very much a Jack Kerouac beat type guy. And it's funny because the other day or a couple weeks ago, I noticed that they had moved all his books to the front shelf in one of the hip bookstores in Wicker Park next to Burroughs and Ginsberg and all that. And part of me was just like, no! But at the same time, people are starting to figure it out. So it's going to be a really cool time, and we're going to have a lot of people from around the city who are into that sort of thing speaking. And apparently there's going to be a Simone de Beauvoir impersonator, which is interesting. A woman who, because she and Algren had a romantic liaison back in the day.
So if this were Comic-Con, she'd basically be Slave Leia, right?
Yeah, pretty much. We got Slave Leia, but French and effeminate. So hey, if that doesn't convince you to come out, I don't know what will.
And where and when is it? Say it one more time.
This is the Nelson Algren birthday party, which will take place in about, I guess, Logan Square, technically, in Chicago, Illinois, on March 19th.
Cool.
And the rest of the details have yet to be solidified. So get on the internet machine and Google that.
Thanks. All right, sweet. Well, thank you so much for coming on. The YouTube page, Eric Tries Too Hard, is going to have this right now. I'll edit it over the next week or two and put it out and give you links and send the links out on iTunes and all that. And you can find more podcasts like this at erictriestoohard.com. Rick, thanks so much for coming on. I really had enjoyed you. I had a great time enjoying you. Thank you, man. We'll talk soon. All right. Take it easy. Bye.